The silence breaks for 3,000 years. No one heard from Earth. The galaxy believed Earth was lost. Some said the planet had destroyed itself, caught in endless wars. Others thought it was simply forgotten, left behind in a galaxy that had moved on. But Earth's name faded from the maps. Its stories were told only as legends, whispered around campfires, spoken in the dark corners of the galaxy. The Galactic Empire, with its towering fleets and massive influence, had no interest in a dead world. It was far too busy expanding, conquering, and dealing with the many races that filled the stars. To them, Earth was just a shadow in the past. But the silence was broken. It started with a signal. Lirin, a young officer at the Galactic Communications Station on the edge of known space, was the first to notice. She sat at her desk, monitoring routine signals from far-off planets, when something unusual caught her eye. A pattern, a rhythm, a signal that didn't belong. It was weak at first, barely registering on the station's monitors, just a faint pulse, but it repeated every 11 seconds, like a heartbeat. Her heart raced as she leaned closer to the screen. She ran a quick analysis. Human, she couldn't believe it. A signal from Earth, but Earth had been silent for centuries. How could this be? The signal wasn't like the random bursts they sometimes received from space debris or distant stars. This was purposeful, clear, directed. "We are awake," the message read, written in code. The message was simple, it was brief, but it was undeniable. Earth had returned. Lirin quickly notified her superior, Commander Crawl, but he dismissed it as nothing more than a glitch. "Impossible," he said. "Earth is a myth. You're seeing things." But Lirin wasn't convinced. She continued to track the signal. It didn't stop. It grew stronger. 2 days later, something else happened. A fleet of ships appeared at the far edge of the galaxy, where no traffic had ever passed. The fleet was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Dark as night, cold, silent, they glided through. The stars, their engines glowing faintly, but making no sound. Their shapes were jagged, sharp, and sleek, like deadly blades cutting through space. There were 5 of them. No one knew who they were. The Empire quickly mobilized its fleet. Scouts were sent out, determined to make contact with these strange ships. The scouts reached the fleet, but after that, nothing. The ships didn't respond to hails. No communications, just eerie silence. The scouts were ordered to get closer, to gather more data. Then, one by one, they disappeared. No distress signals, no warnings, just gone. One remaining scout ship managed to send a signal back before it too vanished. The transmission was short, just a few words. They knew where we were. They saw us before we saw them. Back at the Empire's capital, panic began to grow. The High Council met in urgent session, discussing the sudden appearance of the Earth fleet. The idea of Earth returning after so many years sent shockwaves through the Empire. There were whispers, too, that this fleet was not an invasion, something far more powerful, something they hadn't anticipated. Admiral Vaughn, one of the Empire's greatest military minds, stood at the head of the council. He was a man used to war, but this was different. "We need to find out who they are," he said, "and why they are here." But no one had any answers. The 5 ships did not act like a typical enemy. They didn't launch attacks. They didn't even try to enter the Empire's borders. They simply watched on the outskirts of the galaxy. At a tiny research station orbiting the gas giant Narrow, a group of scientists monitored the ship's movements. Dr. Miller, one of the leading experts on galactic travel, watched the data come in. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "These ships, they are not following normal flight patterns," she said, turning to her colleagues. "They are doing things that shouldn't be possible. The ships didn't follow the laws of physics. They didn't slow down when they should have. They seemed to glide through space, like they were moving through a different dimension. They've mastered something we haven't even dreamed of." Dr. Miller whispered. At the same time, Liren sat in the control room, watching the silent fleet approach the neutral rim. The signal had stopped, but she could still feel the presence of the Earth ships. They were out there, just beyond the edge of known space, moving slowly, steadily, and confidently. Then the ships did something that shocked the galaxy. They didn't attack. They didn't even fire their weapons. Instead, they released small drones. Hundreds of them. Each drone was no bigger than a fighter ship, but they moved quickly, with purpose. They scattered across the galaxy, searching, scanning, learning. Some of the drones made their way to old battlefields, to long-forgotten wrecks, picking up pieces of old technology, gathering it. They didn't destroy anything. They didn't conquer. They collected. The last message came a few hours later. A simple transmission, but one that sent fear through every corner of the galaxy. "We are Earth. We have returned. You will see what we have become." The silence had finally broken, and with it, the galaxy would never be the same again. Steel shadows enter the galaxy. The Empire had always believed in its power. For centuries, it had ruled with an iron fist, defeating enemies with ease and bending galaxies to its will. But now, something was happening that the Empire couldn't control. 5 ships, dark and silent, had arrived from the farthest reaches of space, and nothing seemed to stop them. They didn't send threats. They didn't ask for surrender. They didn't even speak. They just ... moved. Admiral Vaughn sat in the command center, his fingers gripping the table tightly. His mind raced as he watched the strange ships move closer to the galaxy's borders. These weren't like any ships the Empire had ever encountered. They didn't follow any known flight patterns. They didn't react like any species the Empire had fought before. And worst of all, they didn't seem to care about the Empire at all. "They're not even trying to communicate," said one of the officers. "It's as if they don't need to." "We need answers," Vaughn replied, his voice low and dangerous. "Send a fleet to intercept them. If they won't speak, we'll force them to listen." The Empire's fleet moved fast. A line of warships, charging toward the Earth fleet. They approached the 5 ships with weapons ready, but still, nothing happened. The Earth ships didn't fire. They didn't retreat. Then, as if by instinct, the Earth ships responded. Not with fire, but with movement. They spun faster than the eye could track, and in one smooth motion, they disappeared into the darkness of space. Back in the command center, Vaughn's eyes widened. "Where did they go?" "Their ships are cloaked," the officer said, eyes glued to the screen. "We can't detect them. It's like they vanished." The galaxy's greatest fleet had been outmaneuvered by 5 ships that didn't even need to fire a shot at the same time. Liren, the young officer who had first noticed the signal from Earth, was watching the whole thing unfold from her station. She had no power over the military actions, but she couldn't look away. These ships, they weren't just powerful, they were calculated, precise. Every move was like a chess piece being placed perfectly on a board. "What do they want?" she whispered to herself. The Empire's response was swift, but futile. They sent a squadron of scout ships to the edge of the galaxy, hoping to catch the Earth ships off guard. The scouts were meant to be quick fast enough to track the Earth fleet, even if they couldn't engage, but they never came back. "Where are they?" Vaughn asked, his voice growing more tense by the second. "They're gone," Admiral, an officer, replied, shaking their head. "All of them. No signs of attack. No debris. Just ... Nothing." A chill ran down Vaughn's spine. "They're not just hiding. They're toying with us." On the quiet moon of Telvan 3, civilians watched in stunned silence as the Earth fleet passed overhead. The black ships didn't stop. They didn't even slow. They just floated above the moon, their dark shapes casting long, haunting shadows over the surface. A young boy, no older than 12, stood in awe, his eyes wide with wonder. "Are they ... real?" he asked, his voice trembling. His mother pulled him back, but her gaze was fixed on the sky. "I don't know, but I think we're about to find out." The next day, Empire scouts tried a different tactic. They sent small, fast ships, hoping they could outmaneuver the Earth fleet. But the moment they approached the Earth ships, something incredible happened. One of the Earth ships didn't even bother with weapons. Instead, it released a pulsar wave of energy that disrupted the Empire scouts' systems. Their ships froze. In midair, engines cutting out, their control panels flashing in confusion. The Earth ships didn't need weapons. They just controlled space itself. Back at the Empire's headquarters, panic began to rise. The Council could feel it. Something was shifting in the galaxy. A power that they didn't understand. A force that had been hidden for 3,000 years, waiting, watching, evolving. "Admiral, what do we do?" one of the Council members asked. "We can't just wait for them to destroy us." Vaughn stood, his gaze fixed on the stars beyond. "We fight. We have no choice." But in his heart, he wasn't sure. What if fighting wasn't the answer? What if these ships were something the Empire could never defeat? Days passed, and the Earth fleet continued to move, slowly but steadily, toward the center of the galaxy. They didn't stop. They didn't attack. They simply made their way forward, as if they owned the very stars they passed. By the time they reached the edge of the Empire's borders, the galaxy was watching. Every species, every race, every government had eyes on the Earth ships. What would they do next? Then the message came. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't a threat. It was a declaration. "We are Earth," the voice said, calm and clear, coming through every communication channel in the galaxy. "We have returned. We are not your enemy, but we will not be ignored." And with that, the galaxy was forever changed. Asterisk, the Empire shakes. The Empire had never feared a species as much as it feared Earth now, for centuries. The Galactic Empire had crushed rebellions, obliterated fleets, and conquered entire worlds. Its military strength was unmatched, its economy vast, and its reach unstoppable. But now Earth had returned, and no one knew what Earth had become. The 5 ships didn't attack. They didn't even speak. They simply moved, and in doing so, they created a storm in the hearts of every leader, every general, and every citizen of the Empire. What was this new power? What was Earth's fleet capable of? Admiral Vaughn paced the war room, his boots clicking sharply against the cold floor. The Galactic Council had convened again, but this time the atmosphere was different. The members were silent, their faces pale with fear. The strange Earth ships were moving closer to the heart of the Empire. And the Empire's greatest minds were no closer to understanding what they were dealing with. "We have seen their power," Vaughn said, his voice low and steady. "We have witnessed fleets vanish. We have seen their ships control space itself. We can't just fight them like we would any other enemy." A council member spoke up. "Then what do we do, Admiral? Do we simply allow them to take over?" "We need information," Vaughn replied. "We need to understand their true intentions." The Empire had always prided itself on its intelligence networks, but now they were scrambling. No one could understand the Earth ship's movement. They didn't follow conventional flight paths. They didn't respond to hails or commands. They just moved in perfect, synchronized motion. The ships moved with terrifying precision, like they were controlled by a single mind. One fleet commander, General Torv, proposed a daring plan: send a fleet directly to Earth's position, demanding surrender. But others disagreed. "Who are we to demand anything from them?" Senator Brell argued. "We know nothing of their power. We only know they are not like us." A silence filled the room. Finally, Vaughn spoke again. "We cannot show weakness. Earth will not come to us. We must go to them, on the moon of Trinus." A small civilian colony at the edge of the Empire's influence, a group of ordinary citizens gathered to watch the news. News from the capital had been scarce, and the civilians had no idea what was happening. But they had heard the rumors, the whispers of Earth's return. "I heard the ships can control space itself," one man said, eyes wide. "They don't even need to fire weapons. They just move." "What are we supposed to do?" another woman asked, holding her child close. "If they wanted to destroy us, they would have done it already." "They're not here to destroy us," an old man said quietly, his voice filled with a strange calmness. "They're here to show us something we've forgotten." The people didn't know it yet, but they would soon understand what that something was. Meanwhile, far from the Empire's capital, the Earth fleet continued its silent journey. They didn't stop. They didn't alter course. They just moved forward, like shadows in the dark, gliding toward the heart of the Empire. The ships had not fired a single shot. They hadn't demanded anything. They didn't need to. Their very presence was enough to shake the foundations of the Empire. Back on the command deck of the Earth flagship, Commander Alara stood alone, staring at the vast emptiness of space. The stars seemed to stretch on forever, but she knew that soon everything would change. Earth was no longer a myth. It was a force. "We've waited long enough," she whispered to herself. At the same time, word of the Earth fleet's advance spread across the galaxy. Smaller factions and independent colonies began to take notice. Some feared the fleet, while others saw it as a sign of hope. The galaxy had been divided for so long, with countless wars and disputes. Now there was a chance for something new. Some colonies sent ambassadors, asking for peace, while others began to prepare for war. The balance of power was shifting, and no one knew which side Earth would take. Back in the Empire's war room, Vaughn was readying his forces. The time for debate had passed. They had no choice but to strike before Earth's fleet reached the Empire's heart. The Empire's military began to assemble. Thousands of warships, fighters, and battle cruisers, all prepared to engage the Earth fleet in what they thought would be a final showdown. "Prepare for battle," Vaughn ordered, his voice steady but with an edge of tension. The Empire was ready to fight, but Earth had never intended to fight. The Earth fleet stopped just outside the capital's defensive perimeter. They didn't advance. They didn't turn back. They simply hovered there, their ships glowing faintly in the darkness of space, waiting. The Empire sent its fleet forward. When the two forces met, the Empire was ready for battle, weapons charged, shields up. But something was wrong. The Earth fleet didn't fight. They didn't even move. A single ship from the Earth fleet sent out a message, not of war, but of peace. "We are not your enemy," the message said. "We have come to remind you who we are. We have come to show you what humanity has become. Join us, or stay out of the way." The message hung in the air like a threat, but it wasn't a threat. It was a declaration. The silence had broken, and now Earth was ready to redefine the galaxy. Truth beneath the silence. The message from Earth hung in the air like a challenge. The galaxy had waited for anything from Earth for centuries. But now that it had arrived, no one knew what to expect. Join us, or stay out of the way. The words echoed in the Empire's capital. In every corner of the galaxy, people were wondering the same thing. What did Earth mean by this? What had they become in 3,000 years? Admiral Vaughn sat in his darkened office, staring at the map of the galaxy. His fingers drummed steadily against the table. But his mind was elsewhere on the Earth fleet, and what they were capable of. The Empire's military might had never faced anything like this before. A fleet that didn't fight, ships that controlled, space without a single weapon fired. "Why don't they fight?" Vaughn muttered to himself. A voice behind him answered, "Maybe they don't need to." Vaughn turned, surprised. It was General Rin, one of the Empire's most trusted commanders. Rin had been studying the Earth ships for days, and his expression was unreadable. "They don't want to fight, Vaughn," Rin continued, his voice low. "They've already won." Across the galaxy, in a quiet, forgotten corner, an old scientist named Dr. Velis was digging through the ancient archives of Earth. Once a respected expert on Earth's lost technologies, Dr. Velis had spent years searching for any scrap of information about Earth's past. He had always believed that Earth had hidden its true potential, but even he couldn't have imagined the truth. As he pored over the records, one document caught his eye. It was an old transmission sent just before Earth's silence began. The words were simple but striking. "We will not be ruled by others. When the galaxy forgets us, we will grow in silence. We will come back when we are ready, and when we return, we will not be the same." The message was chilling, and now, in the wake of Earth's return, it made sense. Back at the Empire's command center, the Council gathered again. Fear had spread throughout the capital, and whispers of rebellion grew louder. But Vaughn remained firm. Earth had issued its challenge, and it was up to the Empire to respond. "What do they want?" one of the council members asked, his voice shaking. "Why haven't they attacked? Why don't they want to fight?" Vaughn stood, his face grim. "It's not about war. It never was. Earth is ... different. We can't understand it because we've never seen anything like it before." The room fell silent. "Then what?" Senator Rilner asked. "What do we do if they don't want war? What is their plan?" Vaughn looked out at the stars. "I don't know, but we'll find out soon enough." The Earth fleet continued its silent journey through the galaxy, unbothered by the Empire's movements. It didn't matter how many ships the Empire sent after them. The Earth ships didn't stop. They didn't slow down. They simply moved toward the heart of the galaxy with purpose. Commander Alara stood at the bridge of the flagship, watching the stars as they passed by. The silence of the Earth fleet was not the silence of a defeated people, but the silence of those who had been watching, waiting for the right moment to return. Weeks passed, and the galaxy began to change. The smaller colonies that had once been afraid of the empires might now looked to Earth as a new hope. They sent messengers to Earth, asking for peace, asking for a chance to join the new order. Some were rejected, some were accepted. Earth's message was clear: we will rebuild what was broken, but we will do it on our terms. The Empire, meanwhile, struggled to maintain control. They had the power, but the Earth fleet had something else, something more subtle. They had knowledge, they had control over space itself, and most terrifying of all, they had unity. While the Empire fought amongst itself, Earth stood as one dot in the Empire's darkest corner. General Rin was working on a secret project. It was a weaponed, desperate move to turn the tide. But as he worked, his thoughts kept drifting back to Earth. What if the Earth fleet wasn't just a force to be reckoned with? What if they were something more, something that had found a way to transcend the limits of space and time? As Rin moved deeper into the project, his curiosity grew. He had heard rumors of Earth's true power, but he didn't believe them. He had to see it for himself. Back in the heart of the galaxy, Earth made its move. It wasn't a direct confrontation, but a quiet change. The 5 ships stopped above one of the Empire's most powerful planets, one that had been untouched by Earth's fleet until now. With no warning, they released a burst of energy, silent but immense. The planet's power grid flickered. Communications failed. Ships in orbit stalled. The message was simple: we control what we choose. Now you will choose. The Empire didn't understand. They thought Earth was showing force, but it was more than that. Earth wasn't here to conquer. We're here to show the galaxy that they could, if they wanted to. And that, in itself, was more terrifying than any army. Commander Elara stood at the helm of her ship, looking out at the galaxy that had once been so sure of its power. We are not the same, she whispered to herself. We have changed, and now the galaxy will see. Asterisk from silence. Power. The silence was no longer a warning. It was a declaration. For 3,000 years, Earth had hidden itself away, letting the galaxy forget its power. But now it had returned, and its silence spoke louder than any weapon ever could. Its fleet, once thought to be myth, now hovered at the heart of the Empire, controlling space and time like gods who had awakened from a long slumber. In the Empire's capital, the leaders were in chaos. The message from Earth had shattered their confidence. It wasn't a message of war, it was something worse. The Earth fleet had proven they didn't need to fight. They didn't need to conquer. They had only one goal: to reshape the galaxy. Admiral Vaughn had already seen how Earth moved without fear, how its ships effortlessly dismantled any defenses the Empire threw at them. He had watched helplessly as Earth's fleet moved through the galaxy, taking what they wanted, leaving nothing but a quiet power behind. Now, the Empire had no choice. The fleets were mobilizing, not for victory, but for survival. Meanwhile, aboard the Earth flagship, Commander Elara stood in front of the massive view screen, her eyes scanning the stars. The silence of space had always been comforting to her. Now, it felt like a signal, something more than just the absence of noise. We've waited for this moment, Elara said quietly, and now the galaxy will understand why we chose silence. We have evolved. We are no longer a broken world. We are power. Her voice echoed through the ship's command deck as the crew continued their work, preparing for what came next. Across the galaxy, The smaller factions and independent colonies began to choose their sides. The message from Earth had spread. Some still feared Earth's power, but others saw it as an opportunity, a chance to be part of something greater. On the fringe planet of Lyroth 7, the first of the rebel fleets joined the Earth cause. The people there had lived under the Empire's oppression for years, and now they saw a chance for freedom. They sent a fleet of ships, small but determined, to meet with Earth. They didn't know if they would be accepted, but they hoped. Message was simple: we choose Earth. As the new alliances formed, the Empire's grip began to slip. It wasn't the strength of Earth's weapons that broke the Empire, it was the unity Earth had shown. It was the ability to connect, to rebuild, and to lead by example. While the Empire remained fractured, Earth stood as one, and that unity became their greatest weapon. The leaders of the Empire grew desperate. They ordered every fleet in their arsenal to prepare for the final confrontation. They would show Earth their power. No more negotiations, no more silent games. It was war, and the galaxy would either bow to the Empire or it would fall. The final showdown came sooner than expected. The Earth fleet, now joined by dozens of smaller rebel ships, reached the heart of the Empire. The fleets of the Empire met them in a grand display of force, the sky filled with warships. But once again, Earth's ships did not fight the way the Empire expected. They didn't unleash massive energy beams or bombard the Empire's fleets. Instead, they used their power differently. They used it to control the battlefield itself. The ships moved in formation, blocking the Empire's warships. The Empire's weapons couldn't fire. The ships couldn't maneuver. It was as if Earth's fleet controlled every inch of space around them. Why aren't they firing? One of the Empire's generals asked, staring at the view screen in confusion. It's not about firepower, said his lieutenant, shaking his head. It's about control. They don't need to destroy us. They can just ... stop us. As the Empire's fleets faltered, Commander Ilara's voice came through the galaxy's communication systems once more. We are not your enemies, she said, her voice calm but filled with authority. We are not here to destroy you. We are here to lead you, to show you the future. We've waited 3,000 years to return. Now we will show you what humanity has become. Her words rang out, filling every corner of the galaxy. The silence was gone, replaced by the sound of humanity's voice. Strong, united, and powerful, the Empire's forces began to falter. Ships stopped firing. Weapons powered down. Soldiers on the front lines hesitated, unsure of what to do. For the first time in its history, the Empire found itself powerless against an enemy that didn't need to fight. On the planet of Serana 5, one of the Empire's largest colonies, citizens watched in awe as Earth's ships passed overhead. The streets were filled with people, watching the skies, waiting for the inevitable. Then a message came, not from the Empire, but from Earth. Join us, or stand aside. One by one, the Empire's colonies began to choose Earth. They saw the truth. Earth wasn't here to conquer them. Earth was here to reshape the galaxy not by force, but by unity. They would rebuild the broken pieces of the galaxy, heal old wounds, and create a new order where every world had a place. The final blow to the Empire came not in a battle, but in the quiet realization that Earth had already won. Its power wasn't in its ships, its weapons, or its technology. It was in its unity, and that was something the Empire could never defeat. Back on the bridge of the Earth flagship, Commander Ilara watched as the stars glowed softly outside the view screen. The battle was over. The galaxy was changing. The silence had broken, but it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. "We have waited long enough," Alara whispered to herself. "Now, the galaxy will know what it means to be human." And with that, Earth's fleet moved forward, not as conquerors, but as leaders of a new, united galaxy.